try it again. Welcome to the October 6th, 2021 meeting of the Conservation Commission. Let's stand and salute the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, we do roll call. Zachary Bisconti.
Here.
Robert Cassidy. He's absent. Heather Legier. She's absent. Natalie Pardo.
Here.
Ann Raponi.
Here.
John Shu. I'm John Shu. I'm here. And Joe LaValle.
Here.
All right. So I gave everyone a copy of the minutes from the last meeting. There's one correction in the roll call. We need to add that Joe LaValle was present. I'll give you a second to look at them. There are no additions or corrections. I entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
I'll make a motion.
All right, a second.
Second.
Natalie, okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, all right. Okay, minutes are approved. All right, so going to the agenda, I'm just going to switch the order up a little bit. We have one that should, I'll put both of them on. How's that?
That sounds good.
All right. So going to the agenda, we're going to go to item number 4 first. This is a request for determination of applicability for storage of docks at the Point of Pines Yacht Club. So if you want to come forward and state your name and address and
This is Pacini, 213 Broad Street Avenue, VMS.
yeah.
My name is Vincent Pacini. I reside at 213 Brad Street Avenue, Revere, Mass. I'm representing the Point of Pines Yacht Club at 28 Rice Avenue. I'm the Commodore. Yeah. What we're requesting, as we had for the last 3 years, is to place 19 floats on the easterly side of our property. We have done this for the last 3 years. This enables us to work on our floats that get damaged during the year much easier. Also address some concerns of the abutting neighbors of the height of our floats when we have to stack them all in the yard. But recently, there's been a lot of work being done on the pump house, which has an easement on our property. The city has been working there, and they realized that there were additional cleanouts that they need to get to. So by placing some of these floats, we're able to make a much easier path to get heavy equipment in to that pumping station for repairs, et cetera. And we've had no issue over the last 3 years of stacking them there. Yes, they did.
Was a motion made?
Does
No,
anyone have
I'm
any?
listening to all the details right now. and I'm not about to make a motion, but it sounds like they're doing the right thing.
Thank you.
All right. There's no question, any questions from the audience? Hearing none, motion to approve this. Basically finding that this activity is not impacting the wetlands or anything like that, and doesn't really apply.
So make a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, it's unanimous.
Thank you very much.
Okay, it'll be probably sometime early next week, we'll get that to you.
Thank you.
Next up is number 2 on the agenda. This is a continuation of a hearing from last month. An abbreviated notice of intent. Number 2. That's Mass DEP file number 061-0770. Basically installing a garage in a 100-year floodplain at 20 Bryant. So if you want to come forward and
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Paul Finocchio with PJF and Associates. We had our site visit out there this past Saturday with the chairman and Mr. Vitale, going over the site, the location of the garage. And during that discussion, we had also talked about handling some of the roof runoff. So we talked about putting in a stone trench along the drip edge of the roof area on the garage, which would be basically a 2x2 trench with a filter fabric with a 6-inch flexible PVC pipe installed inside it, basically to handle any of the water that would be coming off the roof. And that can handle up to basically a little over a 2-inch in a 24-hour period for storage, which not including, that doesn't include any infiltration into the ground. And I do have amended copies of the plan if I could submit them into the board. It just shows the location of the trench and also a detail of the stone trench.
so this trench would run the full length down to 23
Yes,
feet,
23 feet all the way down along both sides of the garage.
and there's 2 of them.
There's 20, one on either side, 2x2 wrapped in fabric.
And how much rainfall did you say it would handle?
This
off the
can
roof?
handle up to a little over 2 inches in a 24-hour period. There's basically 61.5 cubic feet of storage space.
All right, any questions from any of the commissioners?
Could you tell me hi, could you tell me the perforated PVC pipe, how far off of the bank is it of the stones? How far up? It's not at the bottom,
No, it's not at
obviously.
the bottom. It sits a couple of inches above.
Just a few inches?
Yep.
No, that's a standard.
It's just basically just for storage.
Yeah.
It's,
Thank you.
Anyone from the public or the abutters want to speak? Come on, you can sit.
Good evening, Council. We had asked if the garage could be shifted to the other side of the property since we're the abutters, and there's no property there that's other than land. I
So-
had asked Anthony, he said he could do something, but
Yeah, let me back up and get your name and address.
Pellegrino Colarusso, 101 Wake Street.
Okay. And so that's really kind of not in the Conservation Commission's jurisdiction
Okay.
on the placement of that necessarily. That would be something you'd work out with the neighbors or the city building and zoning.
Okay. Now, can I have a copy of that you just dropped off?
Yep, you can have this one.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right.
Mr. Chairman, may I ask one more question?
Sure.
Paul, could you tell me the size of the smart fence? I don't see it noted here anywhere.
They're a, it was in the advertisement, they're a 12 by 18 inch, the smart fence.
Mr. Chairman, I'm not sure, but I think we had did we have a specification in the Conservation Commission bylaws for size of vents?
I'm not aware of one.
I thought it was in that boilerplate. Did you look over the,
I don't have a boilerplate. I mean, this is a fence that we've been using on other projects, so
and what was the size again?
I believe it's a 12 by 18 inch.
Thank you.
Let me just see if I have that here real quick. So if there's a specification, it's in the stormwater ordinance, and this doesn't qualify under stormwater because it's a private residence. All right, any other questions? All right, do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion. Second.
Second.
What's the motion for? Okay, so we have a motion to approve this project with this additional new set of drawings showing the containment. We have a second?
I second that motion.
Okay. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
All right. Any opposed? All right, that will be approved. So it'll be a little bit before we get out the order of conditions. All right. Joe, do we need a motion to close the hearing? Before we voted? Yeah. Okay. All right. All right, next up is number 3, DEP file number 061-0766. This is notice of intent, continuation of a public hearing for a 360-unit building on 548 to 580 Revere Beach Boulevard. There's proposing no coastal dune impacts, but this does take place during the buffer zone.
Good evening,
Evening.
Mr. Chairman and members of the commission. I'm Tim Alexander with Mill Creek Residential. We're the applicant for and proponent for the project, 548 to 580 Revere Beach Boulevard. As you said, the hearing was opened in August, and at that time, I believe there were a couple members of the commission who wanted to do a site walk at the property. I believe that happened in late August. So we are back to answer questions you have. I have with me my civil engineer, Rick Salvo from Engineering Alliance, and also our wetlands scientist from Goddard Consulting as well, Mitch Mislanka. And we're happy to answer questions that you have.
Okay. Anyone on the commission have any questions?
Mr. Chair, could we just have a brief synopsis of the project, just to refresh all our memories?
Sure, yes. As the chair mentioned in the introduction, we have a couple, we can show a site plan as well, and I'll just give the brief introduction while that's getting set up. So the site on Revere Beach Boulevard is, the proposal is 360 residential units in a multifamily building, similar to other projects that have gone up and been developed on the beach. It would be a parking within a podium, starting on the lowest level, and then there would be 2 levels above of parking, all parking, you know, within the podium, and then 5 levels of residential wood frame construction above. I should have mentioned right up front that the project is being designed and permitted sort of within all of the guidelines of the city zoning ordinance, so a by right application, if you will, to follow all the local regulations. What am I missing, Rick? I think that covers the basics.
Talk a little bit about how you've mitigated any stormwater on site.
Sure, yeah, Rick's probably best to go through that.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. For the record, Rick Salvo with Engineering Alliance. So the resource areas that are present on site, there's a salt marsh located to the rear of the property, off-site, on the other side of the narrow gauge railroad, which causes a 100-foot buffer zone to extend into the property. And about half of the property is located within the 100-year floodplain, which is elevation 11. Obviously, this is a coastal floodplain in this area, so it's the resource area known as land subject to coastal storm flowage. In the existing condition, there's an existing developed dwelling over here, very large, maintained and mowed yard area. As most of you folks know, like all the other properties on the boulevard, these are pretty parallel. The grades range anywhere from elevation 12 to 15 at the boulevard, and then grade down to about elevation 5 or 6 in the rear. So that enables us to set up a scenario where we can fit the building right into the topography, have access to the underground parking around the back at grade, access to the street level parking, entering, exiting on the sides, also at grade. So stormwater runoff generally flows in a westerly direction from the boulevard towards the rear of the property. As you can see, this is the outline of the garage level plan. The stories that go up are towers that are located on that are smaller than that footprint. So the roof runoff from the entire building is mitigated in a large perforated pipe that's located along the entire frontage of the property, about 700 feet long. I believe it's a 96-inch diameter perforated pipe surrounded in an envelope of crushed stone wrapped in filter fabric that provides the storage to hold the runoff from the roof up to and including the 100-year storm event and allow it to infiltrate back into the ground. As we know, this area is all beach sand. It's a very good permeable material. The roadway in the back here will be comprised of a pervious asphalt that has a pavement section that's about 14 inches thick with, that has a choker course and a reservoir course. That choker course slows the water down through it, allows it to filter through to the reservoir course where it gets stored during larger events, and again, percolates back into the ground. So the stormwater management system actually exceeds the requirements of the DEP stormwater regs. We're exceeding requirements such as stormwater runoff. As you know, in coastal floodplains, there is no requirement to mitigate peak rates of runoff. However, by these infiltration BMPs, we're automatically reducing the rate of runoff, promoting groundwater recharge, increasing the quality of stormwater. And because these systems are all sized to handle the 100-year storm, they end up being quite large, so therefore they automatically meet all the treatment standards, and that's all outlined in the drainage report that was submitted with the notice of intent.
Through the chair, was there and now I can't remember, was there a sewer pipe that had to be, would you go over that, please?
Yes, very good memory. So again, similar to the beach house project, there's a sewer easement that extends through the middle of most of these properties. These properties used to all be single-family houses that were located up near the street, so the sewer line ran behind the backs of the houses. When the RC2 zoning district came in, which allowed these larger multifamily buildings to be built, all these projects have included relocations of the sewer line. So this is a 15-inch sewer line that's coming from the high point that's about halfway between here and Point of Pines. This flow all flows actually in a southerly direction. So the sewer line to the south of here has already been upgraded with the beach house project to an 18-inch gravity sewer. So this too will be upgraded to an 18-inch gravity sewer. There'll be a manhole placed on the property over here, the 45-degree angle to another series of manholes where it'll connect to the line from the beach house, which is right in this vicinity over here.
Now I remember also that I asked you if that's okay to have that kind of a right angle on the flow, and that's not a concern of anything.
So that's a good point. So, you know, our initial design, actually, we had good learning experience with the beach house project. We originally had 90-degree bends in the design, and when the city went through their review, they asked us to change the 90-degree bends to 45-degree bends for that very reason, just so there'd be a smooth flow through those structures. As you know, the manhole structures will all have troughs carved in them that'll direct the flow, but they'll be 45 degrees, not 90 degrees, just for that very reason.
Thank you.
I also wanted to clarify too one thing. I remember last time there was a concern in regards to the change in diameter of the piping going from 18 to 15. So now that has been changed. It's no longer going from 18 to 15, and now it's 18 to 18?
Yeah, I think there was confusion the last time around that it was an 18-inch pipe going into a 15-inch pipe. It's not. It's the other way around. It's a 15-inch pipe going into an 18-inch pipe.
Okay. And then the other side that's continuing to flow, it's 18 all the way down?
Correct.
So 15 and then, okay, cool. Thank you.
How far back does this project extend into that buffer zone? Or how much more remaining buffer zone is there beyond that project?
So the 100-foot buffer zone is located right here. So I would say about a back third of the project is within the buffer zone. So about 2/3 of the project is outside of the buffer zone.
How many feet is that? I could have looked at this, sorry.
What's the question? How far is it from the limit of work to the resource area?
Yeah.
Is that probably the better question?
Yep.
I don't know the exact number, but it's somewhere around 35 feet, it looks like to me.
Okay. All right. All right.
Again, the narrow gauge railroad creates kind of a berm that sort of isolates this from that resource
Right,
area.
exactly. Are there any other questions from the commission?
None for me.
All right.
Thank you.
Any questions or anyone from the public want to speak? All right, hearing none.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to close the meeting aspect of the presentation.
I'll second that motion.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, so this hearing is closed. Guess we need a motion to,
Just make a motion to approve.
yep,
I second that motion.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, so that's unanimous.
Thank you very much
Okay.
for your time.
All right, you're gonna leave copies? Or you sent them to me, never mind.
Good?
I'm good.
Okay.
All right, next up is, we have 3 different notices of intent for the Suffolk Downs. One's for building R10, one's for building R11, one is for some roadway and infrastructure. So I guess we'll start with the first one here on list, number 5, which is roadway and infrastructure.
Good evening.
Good evening. Let's state your name and address.
Sure. Michael Borowski, 15 Sullivan Street, Charlestown,
Okay.
Massachusetts. So thank you for having us here tonight. My name is Mike Borowski. I'm joined here by my colleague Seamus Joyce and also our civil engineer Beals and Thomas, Jeff Heidelberg, who'll be speaking in a few minutes. I thought it'd be good just to give really high-level overview, just because I know there are some new members of the commission about the Suffolk Downs project. So I'm just going to run through a couple items. So as many of you know, we did acquire this site in 2017. This plan here just shows, the outline of the site. 52 acres are in Revere. There are 109 acres in Boston as well. We're here, of course, to talk about the Revere portion of the site, which I can just outline with my hand. So we've been really focused on master plan related items over the last several years, and we are now fully approved with a master plan in Revere and in Boston, and we have our MEBRA approvals as well. In this area view, that you see some horse barns. Those have since been demolished, and that was an item that we had brought before the Conservation Commission about a year or so ago. Jeff will kind of speak to some of the other items that we brought to the commission over the last several years, and how we've gotten to the point where we are today with the NOI that we brought tonight. So I'm going to flip to the next one. This plan just gives you a sense of our master plan for the entire site. So 16.2 million square feet have been approved for overall Suffolk Downs. That encompasses Boston and Revere. In Revere, we have 5.68 million square feet of square footage and uses that have been approved, which is roughly 50% commercial, 50% residential. We have been before the Conservation Commission, previously gotten approval on several mixed-use buildings and a small boutique commercial building. We're here also tonight. The next 2 items on the agenda will cover the first life science buildings to be brought to Suffolk Downs, totaling roughly about 400,000 square feet. So with that, I think if there's no questions on just the overall site plan of Suffolk Downs, I can turn it over to Jeff, who can walk through the specific notice of intents. Or notices of intent, I should say.
Okay.
Okay?
All right.
Great, thank you.
Hi, my name is Jeff Heidelberg, 24 David Street, Holliston, Mass. I'm from Beals and Thomas, the civil engineer on the project. We also perform the wetland delineations, and I believe you met Liz Clark, a colleague of mine, at a site walk on Saturday to review the work that we have presented here. I'm going to first just step back quickly to show the existing condition. So, as Mike had pointed out, we had an existing condition here of a lot of pavement, horse barns on the Revere side of the site, and the track itself passing through the Revere side of the site. Just to orient you, we have Winthrop Avenue on the bottom here of the page, and Tomasello Road passing in this direction here. So when we first began this project, we were looking at the demolition of those horse barns and the removal of some of the pavement and the utilities within the property. So we needed to come before this commission. We got a notice of intent approved. We had an order of conditions where we performed that work. Subsequent that, we also filed a notice of intent to perform what's called surcharging work. So with the soils that exist out here, they're compressible soils. They have lots of organics associated with them. So we need to compress the soils before we're able to construct on top of them so that there won't be too much settlement that occurs at a later time. In addition to that, we also had a notice of intent that was filed for a portion of the first phase of work that was going to be undertaken or is being undertaken for the project. So again, initially we had this condition and we filed some notices of intent since. The goal is to maintain the project as we move forward by filing new notice of intents. So this is a 4-phase project. We're here before you showing you the first phase, and it will take many, many years to do so. And we always refer back to this existing condition. This is the existing condition that we're relating to whenever we talk about the existing condition. So with that, I'll step into the actual Phase 1R plans. So the approach that we're taking is there's 2 different components of the project. There's the infrastructure and roadway that supports all of the buildings and parcels, and then there's the buildings and parcels themselves. The roadway and infrastructure that we're presenting here is the initial phase of the roadway. We had this northeastern portion, which is in the thinner lines on that northeast, had been previously approved under an earlier notice of intent. We are looking to supersede that order of conditions due to some changes that were requested and we worked through with the city. So there's been some minor changes since that time where we've removed a pull-off area along Winthrop Avenue. We've worked on some of the utilities within the roadways that had been previously presented and some intersection alignments that we have been working on with the city since. So that is the reason for us including that earlier Phase 1 portion to this project. In addition to that, we're extending where that area of that Phase 1 used to reside. So the thinner lines in this northern eastern portion is now extending down further south, and we're adding additional parcels to that project. So we have this R10 and 11 buildings, which is following this presentation. We'll be talking about that building, which is that lab life science building. In addition to that, we have a R4 parcel, which is temporary parking to support the needs of the project, and an open space parcel. That open space parcel was approved under the special permit as a landscaped outdoor basin. The idea is that the stormwater basin can serve 2 functions. It can be a stormwater basin and at the same time also provide an opportunity for people to utilize the outdoor space. So during the drier times, there won't be water in the basin. It can be landscaped and utilized. In the wetter times, obviously it'll perform as a basin. In addition to that, we also have the roadway network that's being proposed to support those parcels. So we need to provide access throughout the site, connecting over to Tomasello, which on this plan is on this edge of the page, and to Winthrop Ave along the top of the page. There's also utilities involved, so we have our typical water, sewer, gas, electric, etc., associated with the project, as well as the stormwater facilities. So I'm going to first just talk for 1 second about the water and the sewer. For the sewer connection, we need to connect for this phase of the project, the early phase of the project, we are connecting to the Revere sewer. The location where we're connecting is actually on the public safety facility, which is a city-owned property located just to the west of the site at this location here. So we are doing work along the frontage to connect to that sewer manhole. I'll get into in a second why that's important. In addition to that, we also have the water connection, which ties into the MWRA main water line in Winthrop Avenue. So that will be brought onto the site as part of this phase. In addition to that, the gas, electric, et cetera, that will run within the roadways and also will be connected out to Winthrop Avenue. Along with the stormwater management facilities, we have the main basin that I mentioned earlier, which is this feeder basin, which we'll be talking about in a future filing a little bit more. But in addition to that, a significant amount of the drainage from this portion of the site previously flowed to the north to Winthrop Avenue and ran along a culvert and discharged into this section of Sales Creek. And we are maintaining that connection. We, under a previous notice of intent, had increased the size of that culvert, and there is the connection point to Sales Creek now includes a settling basin just prior to discharge to Sales Creek. The main reason why we've included this portion of the site for this filing is because of that section of Sales Creek. And we have that settling basin. Also, we need to cross located close to that portion of Sales Creek with our sewer connection. So there's work associated with the resource areas adjacent to that work. In addition, there's land subject to coastal storm flowage that covers the vast majority of the site. Pretty much the entire site that you see is within LSCSF except for the track itself. That is the one piece that is higher than the land subject to coastal storm flowage. What we're doing is we are raising the entire site out of the floodplain to utilize the site. So there is the fill associated with the impacts to the land subject to coastal storm flowage. In addition to that, we do have Sales Creek that runs along the southern edge of the proposed work. I'm going to flip to the grading and drainage plan to show that work. Again, just to orient, here's the main stormwater basin to treat stormwater, and then here is Sales Creek, and we have a smaller temporary basin to handle the overland flow from the existing surface area. But then the majority is going to be captured, all of the new work is going to be captured within the closed drainage system in this area here and connected to this detention basin. Again, this northern piece here does tie into that Winthrop Ave culvert. The Sales Creek Drive along the southern edge, this new roadway here that we are installing, will be at a higher elevation than it's out there today, which goes back to the LSCSF, the filling of the LSCSF. And the work associated with that grading does come down towards Sales Creek and includes the impacts to riverfront area and bank. In addition to that, we have our, what else was I going to say about that? I guess that's it on the Sales Creek side. Yeah, I was thinking actually about R10 and 11. I'll get to those next. So that's it on the grading and drainage. And then this is the utility plan that I touched upon earlier. I believe that is it to summarize the program that we're proposing for this project.
So for some of the commissioners that didn't go on the walk, can you kind of highlight where the flow from Sales Creek ends up?
Certainly. So there's a portion of Green Creek that flows, it's called Green Creek, it's still part of Sales Creek. It flows southerly here and runs along it's kind of impounded along this section here, underneath Tomasello through culverts that's controlled by DCR, and then continues across Currently, it's under another culvert here where the track passes over top of Sales Creek, continues further heading eastward towards Belle Isle Marsh, passing again underneath the other section of track. From there, it passes underneath the blue line to there's a pump station and a tide gate at Bennington Street. So that when at high tide, the tide gate's closed, water doesn't flow out. Low tide, it does flow out, but during major storm events, you have storm surge associated with it. To decrease the impacts of flooding due to a closed tide gate, the pump station kicks on, and that's all operated by DCR.
Are we open to questions?
Yep.
Sure.
You mentioned compressing the soil. What method do you use to compress the soil?
So there's the placement of soil, just additional material on top of the existing grade, and that elevation is anywhere between 1 and 5 feet of soil. If there were more organics, we would put even more soil than 5 feet worth of material, but just the weight of that soil compresses the material below it. In addition to that, where there's the opportunity to add something that's called a wick drain, we'll utilize a wick drain, which basically that is a small pilot hole that goes down through the soil column, and basically it's basically a little wick that pulls the water up and out of that hole. And so what happens is that water evaporates, and so you can get quicker consolidation of the material by including that wick drain. There's not a substantial amount of flow associated with it, it's just evaporating off of the wick.
Now, you mentioned organics a couple of times, using that term, and I'm curious about when you did borings, is there any clay area in your test borings?
So I'd have to verify with the geotech what material specifically is underground at all locations. The vast majority of areas here are fill materials that were brought in and left here in the 20s and teens, and underneath that is the organics. As far as clay material goes, I'm not aware of a significant amount of clay material. I don't know, Seamus or Mike, if you do. I think it's the majority is the fill material.
And can you define what you mean by organics? Is that like peat?
Yes. Yeah.
Well, a more familiar term to me.
Sure. Sure.
So, but compacting that soil won't affect the permeability?
So the intent is to actually pull the water out of the soil. It's not structurally stable as it is. It just, what would happen if we installed a roadway on top of it? The roadway over time, the weight of that roadway would settle the soils underneath it, and you'd have cracking within the roadway itself, sidewalks, et cetera, in the area. So what this does is it squeezes that material down, compresses the material, pulls the water out of that material, and provides greater structural stability. So,
Well, the reason why I'm pursuing this line is that I'm thinking about what that area was, which was fairly lightweight stables, not a lot of heavy weight there, and open ground where the horses were around, et cetera, et cetera. And I'm wondering if you're changing the character to the point where that land is going to be a problem as far as saturation when there's, rain, snow, whatever. That's why I'm pursuing this.
sure. So the soil type, these are D soils to begin with. So the infiltration rate of these soils is extremely, extremely low. So we are not looking to infiltrate substantial amounts of water into these soils. It's hard to do. You can't do it. The water would just sit there. It would just pond up. So we have a higher water table to begin with. And so what we're doing is by compressing the material and then installing a stormwater basin, we're redirecting the drainage to where it should go, which is to Sales Creek and off of the site. So under existing conditions, all water landed on the paved surface within the horse barn stables. off the roofs, off the pavement, and just sheet flowed directly to Sales Creek. Here, we're putting it into a detention basin, we're giving it some treatment, we're removing the suspended solids, and then that is being directed out to Sales Creek in a more managed.
Now, is this drainage going to be basically gravity, or is pumps involved?
This is all going to be gravity on site.
And you're confident that that will be adequate to handle this area?
Yes, so we've designed the closed drainage system to handle the advanced storm events. That's the 6-inch storm event, and then for the 100-year, the 8.78-inch storm event, so the larger storm events. We've included catch basins and piping, I guess for a simpler term, piping that is adequate sized to handle the flows that we're expecting. So all of this was modeled through HydroCAD to show that it can handle the flow, and the stormwater basin itself was designed so that it would bleed the water out and maintain any peak flow that it was seeing earlier, that Sales Creek was seeing earlier.
When you're doing these calculations, are you taking into account the rather dramatic changes that have occurred in weather overall?
Absolutely, that's why I mentioned those rainstorm events. We're not using the stereotypical TR16, which is the earlier version of what a rainstorm event was. So previously, you would be looking at the advanced storm would have been a 6-inch storm event. We're going all the way up to the 8.78-inch storm event. So we are looking at the larger storms.
Thank you.
Sure.
Any other questions?
I have no questions.
So I saw lots of dirt and soil stacked up, and so one of my concerns is really, during this construction phase, pre-construction phase, just how are you managing all that runoff? And so would it be possible at some point in the future, and I don't know when, a month, 2 months, when you really get going there, for us to schedule kind of a walk around again and just see the different mitigations in place to control that?
Yes.
And we won't make it, I'd like to we have a couple of new members and maybe some others to get a chance to let them see that and, what to look for.
Certainly. And I should also mention, we have the construction general permit that we've filed, and there's a stormwater pollution prevention plan
Yep.
that also will be following, that the contractor is also obligated to follow.
Yep, yeah, and that's typically the type of thing I would look at on a visit,
Yep.
Any other questions from the commission before I go to the floor, the public? So, is there anyone here from the public though? All right. So maybe a motion to close the hearing.
I'll make a motion to that effect, Mr. Chairman.
All right. A second to close?
I second that motion.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, so this hearing's closed for this one. We'll move to the next one. Do you want to do, I guess it's R10.
Mr. Chair, would it be appropriate, R10 and R11 are both on the same parcel? I could describe both, and then just instead of repeating myself, I could kind of highlight everything on the parcel. Is that okay?
That's fine, we're going to go ahead and open the hearing.
Okay.
We'll do them both simultaneously.
Okay.
All right.
Again, Jeff Heidelberg, 24 David Street, Holliston, Mass, with Beals and Thomas, representing HYM Investment Group, McClellan Highway Development Company. So we're here for the R10 and R11 building notice of intents. The building notice of intents do rely on the roadway and infrastructure stormwater management plan. So what had previously been discussed with the large detention basin across the street from this site, which is located here, will be utilized to manage the stormwater for the site. So that goes for all of the utilities as well. So again, that sewer line that I was discussing earlier, the water, gas, electric, et cetera, is all coming through the roadway and infrastructure to this location. Once it gets to this location, then it comes onto the site and it's handled by the site itself separately. So there is a reliance on that roadway and infrastructure for this project. On this plan here, R10 is on the right-hand side, R11 is on the left-hand side. To orient you, this here is at Sales Creek Drive. Over here is Sales Creek. Washburn Ave is located at the bottom of the page here. And Winthrop Ave would be off the page, running up and down, just for orientation purposes. This building is located in the southeastern portion of the site, so it actually does tie all the way down to the Boston City line, which is where Sales Creek creates that divide in this section of the site. The project entails the construction of two buildings on R10 and R11, both lab life science buildings, and the associated infrastructure associated with that. So there is a roadway for access, electrical component, electric connections, water connections, sewer connections, etc. For access, there is 2 points of access. One comes off of Sales Creek, goes around the backside of the building, all the way along the backside of the building, and the other point of access is from the main intersection of Salt Street and Boudreaux Road, which were shown previously on the roadway and infrastructure plan. And again, that road does tie all the way around. There's loading for the facility located on the back of R11 and on the side of R10. The access into the site was already discussed as part of the R9 notice of intent, which has previously been approved. We're utilizing the same access point that was previously discussed. Now we're just continuing that access to also provide the access for R10. The roadway itself comes around the backside of the building because there is an entrance to an underground parking facility located on the rear here. Under an interim condition, you'll see a line located at this location here at the south of page, eastern edge of the property. That dips down and comes back up. That's because during an interim condition, while R11 is under construction, the access along the backside of R11 would need to be closed. So we need to allow for car access to come in and actually wrap around and to enter that underground parking.
So R10 is going to be built first.
Sorry, I should have said that, yes.
Yeah, okay.
R10 will be built first, R11 will follow. The resource areas here are land subject to coastal storm flowage, which entails the majority of the site. We have two wetland resources, one further south along the side of Washburn Ave, and also a smaller wetland here, which is actually part of what would be considered the Sales Creek ACEC, the area of critical environmental concern. So that does connect through to Sales Creek. So what we're doing is providing a limit of work line to allow for this turnaround to enter. What we will do is, that's under the interim condition. Under the final condition, we would remove all the pavement within that section and leave just the section that's necessary to access around the building. We have transformers located adjacent to R11, the building on would be south of page, eastern side of the site, located here. And we also have electric facilities located within the building on this end over here. Water and sewer connections are within the front of the building, and we have, I should mention also the pedestrian connections that we have along the front edge of the site. So we have the sidewalk along the front edge of the site on the Salt Street side, as well as on the Sales Creek Drive side. The final item that I should mention is there is one retail component associated with the project on the first floor, and that would have some outdoor seating located on the north side of the site, right of page side of the site. That's the facility.
Impacts to the neighbors across Washburn?
So there is a berm located, per the special permit, there is a buffer located along the rear side of the property. that is heavily planted along this section here. I can flip to the landscape plan. So this shows the section of the Washburn buffer that shows the plantings associated with that buffer. I should note that the final house that's located along Washburn is owned by the proponent. Which would end up being the house pretty much across the street from this site.
All right. Any questions?
I did have a question, but I think I was on the wrong page here. We're talking two different buildings. My question was on item number 6. I thought that was what we were discussing, and I wanted him, if this is what we're discussing, to define what they mean by mixed-use commercial building.
Sure. So this building has a variation of different uses associated with it. We have a retail component, which may be a restaurant, likely to be a restaurant on the first floor. In addition to that, there's lab and life sciences uses within the building, and there also may be a manufacturing component associated with the building. So the first couple floors on this building will actually be slightly taller than what you would normally see to facilitate that use.
Thank you.
Sure.
Overall height of these buildings are basically 6 stories.
This is it's a 6-story building. It's a 5-story building. The 6th story is
The ground
mechanical.
Yeah.
And then there's the 2 stories of, yeah, sure.
So it's 5 stories with one level of a mechanical penthouse, and the building is roughly about 132 feet high.
Okay. Any solar or,
So we're currently exploring that based on what available roof area we have. So it hasn't been finalized yet, but it's something we're exploring.
okay. Any other questions? So we're doing R10, which is item 6, but because R11's adjacent to it, he went over both of them at the same time. So.
Mr. Chair, just out of curiosity, since John mentioned about solar panels, I'm thinking right now we don't have a profile of what the buildings are going to look like. Flat roof, pitch roof. Did you give us? Oh, jeez, I didn't even see that. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm fine.
I didn't see this
Sure,
print,
yep.
thank you.
All right. Any other questions? There's no one from the public here. All right. So a motion to close this hearing?
I'll make a motion to close it.
Second.
All right, all in favor? All right, this hearing's closed. All right, so I guess we'll do three
I'm
different.
sorry, I can't.
So I guess we'll do 3 different votes, since we have 3 notices of intent.
Okay. I'm not gonna make a motion on one of them. So whoever wants to make a
All
motion.
right, so let's have a motion for the roadway and infrastructure.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to that effect. I noticed there's not a file number yet, or I would have give you the file number.
All right, the file number is 061-0773, Phase 1-R roadway and infrastructure. Have a motion to approve that order of conditions?
I'll make a motion on that one.
Second.
Julie, yeah.
Second that motion.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, that's approved. The next one we need a motion for is file number 061-0771. This is building R10.
So motion to approve.
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Aye. All right, that one passes. And the last one is file number 061-0772. This is building R-11.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, that one's approved. Okay. So the mailing address on the NOI is correct? All right. We're having a little trouble with the post office getting, all right, so we'll get that out, it'll probably be early next week. All right? Okay. Okay, okay, I will. All right, for the commissioners, item number 8. That's going to be delayed until next month. They did not get their legal notice in the newspaper in time, so. Do you have it? It's on the back side of the agenda. So we'll delay that until next month. It was, I don't know if this was a busy month or not for site visits, but we did quite a few site visits. And then correspondence. I don't know, how did they used to do this, Joe? They'd go through each correspondence individually, or is it just,
Only if you, it's up to the chair, if it's something that you might have received that we should be aware of. If not,
okay,
just
well,
file it.
I think I've kept everyone in the loop via email on all of these correspondences. So other than that, I don't think I have anything else. I know. And I've got 2 mics. Oh, good. All right, does anyone else have anything? Then we'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to close the here meetings.
I'll second that motion.
All in favor?
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, we're adjourned. So I didn't introduce her, did I?